On the night of December 1st, 1884, 4 years before Don Bosco's death, the cleric Viglietti was abruptly awakened by piercing screams coming from the saint's room. He leapt out of bed immediately and listened. In a voice choked by sobs, Don Bosco was calling, "Oh, help, help!" Viglietti entered his room at once and asked, "Are you sick, Don Bosco?" "Oh, Viglietti," he said as he woke up. "No, I'm not sick, but I was unable to breathe, you know? That's enough now. Go back to bed and sleep well." He had experienced one of the most terrifying visions of his life, a horde of devils arguing over how to destroy his Salesian congregation. There are many lessons to be learned from this dream which we can apply to our own life, especially when we try to do good for souls. The Miracles and Prophecies of St. John Bosco, a project of America Needs Fatima. I'm your host, Matthew Miller. Subscribe for new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. The next morning, when Viglietti brought him his usual cup of coffee after Mass, Don Bosco confessed, "Oh, Viglietti, I can't take it anymore. My whole chest is sore from having screamed so much last night. I've been dreaming now for 4 consecutive nights. These dreams force me to scream and they tire me out. I'll tell you about it in brief. I thought I was in a big hall where many great devils were gathered, as though for a convention. They were discussing how they could destroy the Salesian congregation. They looked like lions, tigers, serpents, and other animals, though their appearance was somewhat muddled, looking like human beings almost. They also looked like shadows, now higher, now lower, now smaller, and now taller, just like bodies would look behind a lamp if one were to move it in one or another direction, now lowered to ground level and then raised up again. The whole vision was terrifying. One of the devils stepped forward to open the session. He proposed one way by which the pious society might be destroyed: gluttony. He expounded on the consequences of this vice: sluggishness in doing good, corruption of morals, scandal, no spirit of sacrifice, and no concern for the boys. But another devil responded, "Your suggestion is neither general nor effective, nor can all members of the society be undermined by it collectively, for the dining table of religious is always frugal, the wine measured, their regular meals are set by their rules, their superiors are alert so as to prevent disorder. Instead of causing scandal, anyone who was to eat or drink to excess would soon arouse disgust. No, this isn't a weapon to use against the Salesians. I'll find some other way that's more effective and more likely to help us in our intent. Love of riches. When the love of riches enters a religious congregation, the love for comforts will also enter with it, and the members will attempt everything to secure money for themselves. The bond of love will be shattered. Since everyone will think only about his own needs, the poor will be neglected in order to dedicate themselves only to those who have means, and there will be stealing from the congregation." This devil would have continued speaking, but a third stood up and said, "Gluttony? Get lost. Riches? Come now. The love of riches will only affect a few among the Salesians. The Salesians are all poor. They have but a few opportunities of making money for themselves. On the whole, their structure is so designed, their needs so immense, with all the boys and all the houses they have, that no matter how big any sum of money it may be, it will soon be used up. It's impossible that they hoard anything. I have one infallible means by which we can conquer the Salesian society for ourselves, and this is freedom. So let us teach the Salesians to disregard their rules, refuse certain assignments because they're burdensome and less glamorous, create division from their superiors by proposing conflicting opinions, and go home on the pretext they have been invited, and so on." While the devils were discussing among themselves, Don Bosco was thinking, "I'm all ears to know what you're saying. I want to know. Go ahead, talk. By all means, keep going, because then I'll be able to upset your conspiracy." Just then, a fourth devil leapt to his feet, shouting, "Rubbish! You're only proposing broken weapons. The superiors will know how to check such a freedom, and will expel from their houses anyone who ventures to rebel against the rules. Maybe a few will be led astray by their craving for freedom, but the vast majority will remain steadfast in their duty. Now I have a weapon that will surely undermine the whole congregation down to its very foundations. It's a weapon against which the Salesians will hardly be able to defend themselves. It will carry the rot to their very roots. But before we hear this final dastardly plan, if you're in need of spiritual aid to counter the onslaughts of the devil, you might consider enrolling in our Saturday Mass intentions for the promoters of St. John Bosco. Just click on the link in the description below or on the Mass logo at the end of the video. Father Jerry will remember your intentions during his beautiful Mass said in the traditional Byzantine rite. No contributions are necessary to have a Mass prayed for you, but if you do decide to help us out, you could receive excellent books written by Don Bosco himself and receive many other benefits, which you can read about by clicking on the link. Help me keep these videos free of filthy YouTube ads and spread his message far and wide. The fourth devil shouted, "Listen to me carefully. Convince them that their main glory should consist in their learning. This means of inducing them to study for the sake of study, learning for the sake of attaining fame, and not for the sake of practicing what they preach, and not for using their learning for the benefit of their neighbor. They will become arrogant in their attitude toward the poor, ignorant and lazy as far as their sacred ministry. No more festive oratories, no more catechism classes for the boys, no more humble classrooms where they could teach poor or abandoned boys, no more long hours in the confessional. They will hold on to preaching only, but very occasionally, in a form well measured and sterile, because it will only be an outlet for their own vanity in trying to be praised by their listeners and not to save their souls." This devil's suggestion was hailed by applause. Don Bosco foresaw the day when the Salesians might really be led to believe that the interests of the congregation and its honor lay solely in learning, and he grew afraid that not only would they act accordingly, but they would also preach that such a belief should be shared far and wide. Don Bosco was again standing in a corner of the room, watching everything and listening to all that was said. One of the devils discovered him and started shouting, pointing him out to the others. At this scream, all the devils rushed at Don Bosco and shrieked, "We'll put an end to this!" A whirl of infernal ghosts pushed and seized him by his arms, and at this point he began to yell, "Let me go! Help!" At last he woke up, his chest all sore from so much screaming. The following evening, he saw that the devil had begun working on the Salesians in their most essential core, urging them to neglect their rules. He was able to see them all distinctly. Some observed the rules, while others broke them. The last night, the dream became more terrifying than ever. Don Bosco saw a big flock of sheep and lambs representing so many Salesians. He approached them, trying to caress the lambs, but as he drew nearer, he saw that their wool wasn't real. It was not a lamb's wool, for hidden under it there were lions, tigers, pigs, panthers, and bears. Every one of them had a hideous, ferocious monster at their sides. Some were standing in a huddle talking in the midst of the flock. Unnoticed, Don Bosco approached the group to hear what they were saying. They were discussing what to do in order to destroy the Salesian congregation yet again. One was saying, "We must cut the Salesians' throats." Another chuckled and said, "We should strangle them." But just then, someone saw that Don Bosco was standing by, listening. This demon sounded the alarm, and they all shrieked together that they should start by killing Don Bosco. At that, they all rushed at him to choke him. It was then that he uttered the terrible cry that had awakened Viglietti. Don Bosco had a heavy heart, not only because of the diabolical violence with which he had been attacked, but also because he had seen a great banner floating over the heads of the flock, and on it was written, "Bestiis comparati sunt." They are like beasts. As he said this, he bowed his head and wept. Viglietti took his hand and said, "Ah, Don Bosco, with the help of God, all of us will always be faithful, will we not?" "Dear Viglietti," Don Bosco replied, "be good and get ready to see what's going to happen. I've barely outlined these dreams to you. It would have taken me much longer were I to have told you everything in detail. How many things did I see? Some of the confreres of our houses will not live to see another Christmas novena. And so it came to pass. Oh, if I could only talk to the boys, he went on. If I only had the strength to be among them, if I could only make a tour of all our houses, do all that I used to do, revealing the secrets of individual consciences to everyone as I saw them in the dream. If I could only say to some, break the ice, make a good confession for once. They would answer, but I do make a good confession. Then I could reply by telling them all that they concealed and that would stop them from opening their lips again. If I could only say a word to some of our Salesians as well, to show them how much they need to put their own conscience in order by repeating their confessions. I saw how some kept their rules and others didn't. I saw many youths who would go to San Benigno and become Salesians, but then leave us again. Even some who are now already Salesians will defect. There will be those who will seek only knowledge, the brand of knowledge that inflates the ego and craves praise. This will have them disregard the advice of those whom they consider less learned than they are. These sorry thoughts were later interwoven with providential consolations that filled Don Bosco's heart with joy. It seemed that the focal point of this dream was the missions, and right about that time, God gave significant graces to the Salesian congregation so that their work in Patagonia and Europe could move forward. God didn't abandon our dear saint in his desolation at this moment, but consoled him lovingly. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you'd like to enroll, click on this link. God bless you, and Our Lady keep you.